chapter 27, the satanic input, tape 2. Now we're going to talk a little bit more up close and personal concerning the warfare being levied against the sons of God. Very specifically, you and I. This is something that has been hidden, yet we have dealt with this and gone down this road for the last 10 years. And it deals with relationships of the soul and reactions of your soul that open up and allow conduits of a satanic input. So what we first want to address is that the playing field is different now than it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. The stakes are a lot higher. During that time, there's a lot that God was allowing because he knew his sons were in a process of growing up and maturing. So, in many ways, you might say the Lord looked the other way and was patient, like I think it's in James, patient, for the maturing of the sons to come to fruition before he would release the judgments and so on and so forth. Well, we're at that point. We've been at this point for some time. And we need to understand that because the stakes have gone up several notches, and I don't know how much the satanic infrastructure realize exactly where things are at in God's moving in the earth, because the timetable for their imminent judgment is upon us. And so things that have been allowed to be in your life, whether they're unconsecrated relationships, or family or friends, associations that aren't quite right, and yet, you didn't really understand what was happening, so you didn't really deal with it. And it didn't really have a huge dynamic, perhaps, 20 years ago. The problem is, it's having a huge dynamic now. And we've talked about bonds. We've talked about bonds so much that, it's crazy. And the problem with bonds is that they tie you and they blind you by virtue of where the other person is. But there is more at stake than just that. Satan is seeking to kill the sons before they manifest. And so relationships that I've had, or business relationships or connections, anything that has been, present, the minute Satan sees that you have an openness that you haven't dealt with, whether it's a sympathy or a bond, or whether or not you're just reacting to someone. So, therefore, the very aspect of reacting opens you up. That's why Paul, in the New Testament, it talks about not letting your anger, not letting the sun go down on your anger. Well, what's that all about? So you can have a good night's sleep? No, it's because you're opening yourself up to a level of transference by virtue of your reaction, your anger, and your hostility toward a given situation. When the Lord says, hey, turn the other cheek, let it go, let it go. But unless you're able to do that, you have opened a channel of transference that comes against you. Now, in the past, that transference might have brought some blindness and some oppression, whatnot. But now what's happening is as Satan and the hordes of evil under him see a situation developing with you, he will jump upon that relationship or that reaction, and he will bring a satanic assault against you like you've never seen. In the past, maybe that wasn't quite the case because the stakes weren't where they are now. But now, Satan is looking and prowling truly as a lion. The word talks about, how he prowls about. Well, that's all good. But what does that mean? Satan's prowling and whatnot, so you can read that scripture and say, well, yeah. But I tell you, until you experience it, you don't really know what he's talking about. I don't know that he's been prowling that much in the last several decades, but I tell you, at this time, he is prowling. And he is looking for any access into you that he might destroy you. And where we've talked about bonds for 10 years now, it's not a game. It's not something that, well, I'm just not going to relate to that person because they don't believe like I do. No, there's a lot more at stake. Unless you've done your homework, you can count on the fact that Satan will use those contacts to take you down, if at all possible. The stakes are quite a bit different. When this word first came, we had already walked in this quite a bit. But I will tell you, since then, we have walked in this 10 times more. And it has been a huge learning curve again for us. Because Satan is right on point, looking for any possibility to bring transference and assault against the sons of God, to delay and hinder their manifesting, and if possible, to destroy them. That's what's at stake. And a lot of people wouldn't like this word. It's like, I don't want, Edward, this word's a little over the top. And that's fine. If that's, how you see it, then this word is not for you. But to the sons who are on point, in the battle of the ages, determined to see the breakthrough, then it's important that you understand what's at stake and how aggressive Satan is to take you out, and how important, therefore, it is that you not only don't react to anything coming, you don't react to anything coming against you. And you make sure and get rid of all your sympathy and all the other bonds of the soul that you would have, because I tell you, they will zero back on you in no time, just like that. That's why we're so careful and have to be so careful with any relationships that you allow. Doesn't matter, business, family, friends, whatever. You say, well, they've been fine. I've never had a problem. That's true. Maybe you haven't had a problem in the past. But I tell you this, you will now. From this point forward, you will have a problem. Because every aspect that Satan can use to come against your manifestation, he will do so. And he will do so to those who are closest to you, or to those who have angered you and you react and you want to go and just beat him up. God will use, the enemy will use that channel to come in against the saints. This is the true warfare of the saints. In the spirit, there is a great deal of assault going on, a battle in the heavens. A lot is happening in the earth. Strange things that we can't even talk about. There's aliens. You name it, it's out there. It's happening. But the real battle is against the manifesting of the sons of God, because therein lies the destruction and defeat of the hosts of darkness, of all of them. This is Edward. Of all of them. We're dealing with that unregenerated soul nature because people have not gone through a work of the cross. And that's just how it is. That's what you're dealing with. You remember what happened when Christ was walking with Peter, and Peter said, "Oh, don't go, into that town. They're gonna, it's not going to be a good thing." And Peter said, "Just get behind me, Satan." He knew what he was dealing with. We need to understand that in the realm of soul, that is where deception thrives, where misunderstanding thrives. To the mind of the soul, to the Christian who walks in the realm of the soul, there is no ability to know the truth. And deception and illusion run rampant. And this is how the enemy works. He'll work through these relationships, take something that was a small episode, blow it out of proportion until that person begins to react with an anger or hatred towards you. And right at that point, Satan's there. And that satanic channel comes against you like nobody's business. You have to realize you're not dealing with flesh and blood, right? Your warfare is not against flesh and blood, but against the spirits of wickedness, the principalities, powers, thrones, and dominions. You might say, well, Sally Sue over here had a problem and she's really angry at me, and I'm just really feeling it. Well, you're not dealing with Sally Sue. You're dealing with a spirit realm that has piggybacked on that channel to come against you, to destroy you. And you need to understand exactly black and white. You might have someone who just is a business associate, just fine, everything's great, but all of a sudden they start to do some things wrong and you call them on the carpet and they react. Well, their little reaction is all it takes for the spirit world to jump on that and come against you like nobody's business. This is the warfare of the saints. This is an area of teaching that the sons have been lacking. There's been very little written or understood of these deep things, because these are the deep things of Satan. Not all of the UFO encounters and alien bases and all the witchcraft and all of that stuff. That's not the deep thing. The deep thing is that which has been hidden. So what's the answer? You have to get into the Spirit, which God has been driving His sons into, and to go through the work of the cross. And in that process, the bonds of the soul and the bonds of the flesh are broken, because you see and you understand. A window of change is before us. A window of change, transformation, and growth. And at this time, at this moment, everything is about bringing the sons to birth. With eyes wide open, we need to understand what we're dealing with. Really understand. Our warfare is not with the blatant satanic powers, as we've said. It's with the very subtle manifestation of the enemy as he finds contacts or points of access to you, through relationships and contacts, even your own soul. Whatever openness that you've had, which has not been dealt with in the Spirit, will become your Achilles heel. And any area in which the cross has not been completed, wherever these soul bonds exist, you will be vulnerable to the satanic input against you. And it takes very little reaction from someone that you're close to for them to become a source of the satanic input. And I tell you, this I am telling you by virtue of what we have lived and seen. We don't yet understand how the enemy is able to piggyback upon the reactions of people, but it's very valid. You might ask, well, how does this transference manifest? It can manifest in many ways, from a strong physical assault against you to a very subtle, damaging psychic and mental assault. geared toward demeaning you in your own eye. And that was a problem David faced in the Old Testament, for the presence of Goliath brought with it a strong, demeaning spirit, and David had to deal with that. And that was also the problem of the children of Israel. The first time they went into Canaan to spy out the land, and they felt like grasshoppers in their own sight. The bottom line of this warfare is geared to take away your ability to see. And that's what Satan's trying to do. Because by blocking your sight, he's able to hinder your growth and change. We're treading in new territory. I understand. And it can be difficult to really understand. But I trust that this has conveyed a deeper understanding as far as the overview of what has been happening in the earth, but also what's happening right now. We need to really understand at this juncture of time that the real warfare that we're facing is the unregenerated soul, whether it's our own soul or the soul of another, which has not gone to the cross. We need to understand the jeopardy that we face with soul bonds and relationships that we've not been able to let go of. It doesn't matter if it's your children, grandchildren, or someone across town. The playing field here is pretty level. What matters the most is that we come into a deep understanding of the consequences and the devastating effects that bonds can have if they're not completely broken off. And I would say, and add to that, even your reactions, because to react is to create a bond. May not be the type of bond that you visualize, but to react and be brought into a ruckus or a fight over something, and you find yourself, you're just reacting, that creates a cord or a conduit, pretty much the same as a bond. It can be very effective against you. The ascension of the Spirit over the soul is happening, and the sons are being brought into a position where they're beginning to be able to rightly discern and see. However, the more you come forth, the more you'll find relationships coming out of the woodwork. Remember, Satan is looking for that moment in time when he can bring a strong satanic input against you. This word needs to be experienced. And I know that a lot of this may seem like theory, but I can tell you, we have lived this very much up close and personal. And this is what the sons are facing more than they understand. Right now where we are, there's a great deal at stake. And that's why we have seen Satan prowling and using even the littlest scenario to come against us. Perhaps this will begin to confirm and illuminate what you've been going through. You need to understand what this is and how this satanic design has been eternally set against you. And you're coming forth completely into the manifestation of sonship. There's been a great battle that's been set against you, but it's come to the culmination. And now more than ever, the sons must walk with a great deal of wisdom and understanding. It's important to grasp and understand that if the sons are to move into sonship with the leverage, authority, and dominion, then we must be able to walk with this level of control and insight to stay free from the satanic input.